Miss Collier explains
Dividing fractions.
Today, our learning intentions are to be able to find the reciprocal of a fraction or mixed number, to understand that dividing fractions can be done by multiplying by the reciprocal, and to be able to divide fractions, mixed numbers, and whole numbers, giving our answer in the simplest form. We will know we are successful when we can find the reciprocal of a fraction, whole number, or mixed number, and when we can divide fractions and mixed numbers. Now, I have to say, dividing fractions is probably one of my favorite things because it seems like a really hard topic, but it's actually not. And the way we make it easy is with KFC. I love my KFC. Seriously, popcorn chicken is probably the best food ever invented. But I also love the fact that KFC helps us to divide fractions easily. KFC stands for keep, flip, change. So whenever we want to divide fractions, we just have to KFC. Keep the first fraction the same, flip the second fraction upside down, and change the sign from a division to a multiplication. Easy as KFC. Here's another great example of fractions in everyday life. Aircraft engineers assemble new planes and aircraft mechanics maintain, service and repair planes. Fraction skills are essential because most aircraft parts use imperial measurements, usually in fractions of an inch. Let's go over our key ideas. To find the reciprocal of a fraction, we must invert the fraction, basically turn it upside down. So we swap the numerator with the denominator and it's called the reciprocal. Dividing a number is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. When we divide a fraction, all we have to do is have some KFC. We keep the first fraction the same, we flip the second fraction to be the reciprocal, and we change the division to a multiplication sign. And lastly, when dividing mixed numbers, we should convert them to improper fractions. First, let's practice finding the reciprocal. Now remember, the reciprocal is inverting a fraction, so swapping the numerator and the denominator. So firstly, I should write out my question, 2/3, and then write the reciprocal, which is 3/2. Now you ask, Miss Collier, should I simplify that? Should I convert it into a mixed number? Well, normally if you were doing a fraction question, yes. But at the moment, you're being asked to find the reciprocal. And whenever we use reciprocal, we want it as an improper fraction. So this is the one time I'm going to say, don't convert it. B, we have 5, which is a whole number. And whole numbers are over 1 because they're not split up into any parts. Now we can find the reciprocal, which is 1/5. For C, we have a mixed fraction. We should convert it to an improper fraction of 10/7. Now we can find the reciprocal of 7/10. You try some. Let's quickly check the answers. 6/7, reciprocal would be 7/6. B, 3, we need to put it over 1, and then we can invert to 1/3. C, we need to convert to an improper fraction of 11/3, and then invert it to 3/11. If we think about normal division, we're taking a number and splitting it evenly into groups. And the answer is how much is in each of those groups. Here I have 3/5 of a cake, and I want to do 3/5 divided by 2. So I'm going to take each piece and split it into 2. Now that I've taken my 3/5 and split them each into 2, I can split the whole 3/5 into 2. Now that it is split into 2 groups, I want to know how much is in each group. I still only have 3 pieces, but now my pieces aren't a 1/5 big, they're a 1/10 big because it was split in half, meaning that 3/5 divided by 2 is 3/10. So I'm doing 3/5 divided by 2. When I cut up the cake, I figured out the answer was 3/10. But how could I get that number mathematically? Well, I've learned when dividing fractions, I should be eating some KFC. So let's test it. I've taken my whole number and I've put it over 1. K, keep the first fraction the same. F, flip the second fraction upside down. C, change to a multiplication. Now I know how to multiply fractions. 3 times 1 is 3. 5 times 2 is 10. So I got 3/10. So when I've got a fraction divided by a whole number, it's the same as multiplying the denominator by the numerator or multiplying by the reciprocal. So let's try dividing fractions by whole numbers. A, 5/8 divided by 3. I need to first put my whole number as a fraction over 1. Now I'm going to KFC. K, keep the first fraction the same. F, flip the second one upside down. C, change to a multiplication. Now I just multiply. 5 times 1 is 5. 8 times 3 is 24. Can I simplify? Nope, that's my answer. B, 2 and 3/11ths divided by 5. I need to do two things. Firstly, I need to convert this mixed number into an improper fraction. 25 over 11. Now I need to put the whole number over 1. It's a division of fractions, which means I'm going to KFC. Keep the first fraction the same, flip the second one upside down, and change to a multiplication. Now I can multiply easily. 25 times 1 is 25. 11 times 5 is 55. Now I need to simplify. Using my divisibility, I know they can both be divided by 5, leaving me with 5 over 11. Now you try. Let's check the answers. 3/4 divided by 5. I need to put this over 1. Then I need to KFC. Keep the first fraction the same, flip the second fraction, and change to a multiplication. Now I just multiply. What's 3 times 1? That's 3. 4 times 5? That's 20. Can I simplify? Nope. B, I need to convert to an improper fraction. That's 18 over 5. And I need to put the 2 over a 1. Now I KFC. Keep the first fraction the same, flip the second one, change to a multiplication. Now I just multiply. 18 times 1 is 18. 5 times 2 is 10. Can I simplify? Yes. Firstly, I can turn it into a mixed number. 10 goes into 18 one time, with 8 left over. Now I can still simplify because I can divide them both by 2, leaving me with 1 and 4 over 5. So we've done a fraction divided by a whole number, but what about a whole number divided by fractions? For this example, I'm going to use apples. I know what you're thinking. I'm as shocked as I am, but you've got to eat a healthy snack every now and then. So I want to do 2 divided by 2/3. So that's 2 whole apples split into groups that are 2/3 of an apple big. Let's split them. So now I've taken these 2 apples and I've split them up into groups that are 2/3 of an apple big. How many groups do I have? Well, that's 3. So I think the answer is 3 groups. Let's check it mathematically with our KFC. Firstly, I have to put the whole number over 1. Then I KFC. Keep, flip, change. Now I multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 2 is 2. How many times does 2 go into 6? That's 3 times. That's 3 groups. Let's have a go at dividing whole numbers by fractions. 6 divided by 1/3. Firstly, I need to write the whole number over 1. Then I write out my whole question. Then KFC. Keep the first fraction the same, flip the second fraction, and change to a multiplication. Now I can just multiply. 6 times 3 is 18. 1 times 1 is 1. How many times does 1 fit into 18? That's 18. B, 24 divided by 3 over 4. First, I need to put my whole number over 1. Then I need to KFC. Keep the first fraction the same, flip the second fraction, and change to a multiplication. 24 times 4 is 96. You can use a calculator. 1 times 3 is 3. How many times does 3 go into 96? Well, that's 32. You try to divide some. Let's quickly check the answers. 8 divided by 1/5. I need to put the 8 over 1. Then I need to KFC. Keep, flip, change. 8 times 5, 40. 1 times 1, 1. 1 goes into 40, 40 times. B, 20 divided by 4/9. I need to put the whole number over 1. Then KFC. K, F, C. 20 times 9 is 180. 1 times 4 is 4. How many times does 4 go into 180? You can use a calculator, but I know it's 45. And lastly, we need to think about dividing fractions by fractions. So let's go back to our Krispy Kremes. I have half a donut, and I want to do half divided by 1/3. So that's half of a donut split into groups that are 1/3 big. First, I need to split my donut into pieces that are a third big. As you can see, I've only got enough donut to make one group that's a third big. And then my second group is only half of a third, which means I have 1.5 groups of a third big. Bit tricky. Okay, let's test this theory that it's 1.5 groups using KFC. 1/2 divided by 1/3. Keep the first fraction, flip the second fraction, change to a multiplication. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 1 is 2. How many times does 2 go into 3? Well, that's 1 with 1 left over. We're right. Let's practice dividing fractions by fractions. A, 3/5 divided by 3/8. Make sure you write it out. Then we KFC. Keep the first fraction the same, flip the second fraction, change to a multiplication. 3 times 8 is 24. 5 times 3 is 15. How many times does 15 go into 24? Well, that's 1 and 9/15 left over. But I know 9 and 15 can both be divided by 3. So that leaves me with 1 and 3/5. For B, I have 2 2/5 divided by 1 3/5. Now I need to convert them into improper fractions, which is 12/5 divided by 8/5. Now I KFC. Keep the first one the same, flip the second one, and change to a multiplication. 12 times 5 is 60. 5 times 8 is 40. How many times does 40 go into 60? That's 1 with 20 left over. Now I can see that both 20 and 40 can be divided by 20. That leaves me with 1 and 1/2. 1/2. You try dividing some fractions by fractions using KFC. Let's quickly do the answers. 2/3 divided by 5/8. K, F, C. 2 times 8 is 16. 3 times 5 is 15. 15 goes into 16 one time with 1 left over. B, we need to convert them to improper fractions. So that's 21/5 divided by 23/10. K, F, C. 21 times 10 is 210. 5 times 23 is 115. You can use a calculator. How many times does 115 go into 210? Well, that's 1 with 95 left over. I can see that they can both be divided by 5. That leaves me with 1 and 19/23. I hope now you know how to find the reciprocal of a fraction, whole number, or mixed number, and that you know how to divide fractions and mixed numbers using your KFC. Hope you